The visit of the wise men. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, O Bethlehem in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them at what time the star had appeared, about tea time. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. The flight to Egypt. Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child, to destroy him." And he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, "Out of Egypt I call my son."
Should we stop there because
Sure.
there's some interesting points. Um, so on the wise men, I was actually when I sort of learnt about this, I can't remember who from. I think it was on a lecture or something I saw. I was quite moved by it actually. So do you know why they're called the wise men? Because we hear it, but we're never actually told why they're
My
wise.
my version says the Magi.
Yeah, yeah. Which different translation, I
Very proud of
suppose.
yourself.
It's a lot cooler word, isn't it? So you have to picture there's apparently this massive star in the sky. So then the skeptic would say, so why didn't other people see it? Why didn't they follow it? It's like, well, the reason the wise men were wise is because they were looking for it.
See.
They had their eyes open. They could see that something, everyone else is going about their life, but they could see that something was changing, that something was going on. And it's also, I suppose, a great act of faith that they came from the east, which is, they probably walked for God knows how long, just on the sign of a star in the sky that they had noticed. So it's kind of a great act of faith that they, on just sort of this what they saw as a kind of divine sign, they went all this way.
This commitment.
Yeah, and made this commitment to go and see what was going on. The stuff about Herod is interesting that because they really give you the sense the kind of frenzy has broken out in Jerusalem, where it says, when Herod heard this, he was troubled and all of Jerusalem with him. So it wasn't that Herod was just sort of a bit wound up, it's that he had sent his whole court, his whole home into a frenzy, and they were all freaking out. And in the Old Testament might perhaps best be summarized as kind of people getting a very direct instruction from God himself, being told what they had to do and how to do it, but still failing through their own kind of fallen human nature by just not having the willpower or the wisdom or whatever it is to kind of succeed in this very obvious and direct kind of mission or message, which has come directly from God himself. And there's a parallel of that with Herod, where his sort of court, his court quotes the words of the prophet to him, so they know that something like this is going to happen, and they have the knowledge from the scriptures that something big is going on, and that the scripture can help you understand what's going on. But they're still freaking out, and it's this kind of the triumph of sort of human folly and the hunger for power over kind of wisdom and the desire to fulfill the law and to be true to God and believe in God and all this kind of stuff. So there's a kind of interesting parallel again to the Old Testament there.
And so that's kind of why when it says assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, and then they told him where where they should head.
Yeah.
So were they aware that Herod was not going to be happy about? Because that seems like a bit of a, if you're a priest, right?
I think they would have, because Herod.
Is that what you meant by scrambling for power? Like they told Herod,
yeah,
it was the ruler,
Herod
to secure their position in the.
Even though Herod has the scripture available to him, the knowledge, and there's people telling him that what's going on, this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The thing he cares more about is that this person is claiming to be a king of some kind, and that's a threat to my throne. It's a kind of.
So it would have been known that would have been an issue.
Yeah. So it's kind of a prime example of kind of, as it was in the Old Testament, all these examples of kind of human folly and ego triumphing over the direct sort of word and instruction of God.
Any questions, Adam, before I move on?
And also, on the flight of Egypt, have any of you read Lord of the Rings?
No, I'm reading it now.
Oh, okay. I've seen the films. Who does this remind you of?
The films, definitely.
Fleeing, exile in Egypt until he's called back is Aragorn.
Right.
It's just a kind of a sort of a left field point. And Tolkien said that Aragorn was a figure most like Christ in his books. It's kind of the king is in exile and he's waiting to be called back. I will. Out of Egypt, I call my son.
Right.
It's just an interesting.
Well, my initial
also like the Lion King.
Yeah.
My initial thought was Moses.
Yeah.
Leaving Egypt, fleeing from the Pharisees.
Yeah. Again, an Old Testament parallel that very in line with Matthew.
Awesome. Herod kills the children. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men...
Is that what it says in news? Herod kills the children?
Yes.
Mine is a little bit... It says the massacre of the infants.
Not the young ones. Herod kills the children. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children, she refused to be comforted because they are no more. The return to Nazareth. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went off to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was resigning over Judea, in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, and that he would be called a Nazarene.